Yes, we're gonna say Yahoo! Of course, I gotta make a video on this. Either it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I definitely know what I'm gonna be doing on Sunday, November the 15th in 2026. Or at least I'm really hoping I'm going to be able to do what I've already been say, have it in my calendar. But the Calgary Stampeders earlier today said they had a major announcement. And the major announcement, when you have the Commissioner Randy Rosie, tourism industry leader, president of the Calgary Stampeders, and Mayor we love to hate, Jody Gunnick, all together, there was speculation that in 2026 the 113th Grey Cup was going to be either between the Calgary Stampeders and Edmonton Elks to host. Well, the Calgary Stampeders actually come out on top and will host the 113th Grey Cup at McMahon Stadium. So that's why I'm very ecstatic about this news, because I could dream again. And will the fifth time be the charm, as I'll look at the history, as I was not around the first time Calgary hosted the Grey Cup. This will be the sixth time the city of Calgary and McMahon Stadium will host the Grey Cup. Edmonton has only had 5 at Commonwealth Stadium. And I gotta throw it in there. I'm actually pleasantly surprised that we got it, especially last time when we hosted it. 2019, some were thinking that until we get a new stadium and or improvements are made, we might not host the Grey Cup again until then. And then the city of Edmonton apparently was going to look at spending $250 million in the redevelopment plans to upgrade their stadium at Commonwealth. And for someone that's been to both stadiums, I mean, it does feel a little dated and antiquated. The Commonwealth feels like a larger, more modern version of McMahon Stadium. If you take the same concept, the only one now that Edmonton still has the suspended speaker while Calgary doesn't. Apparently we beat Edmonton to the punch, or could also say maybe by default we were the only team to host it. But what do you think about Calgary? The Calgary Stampeders and McMahon Stadium getting to host the Grey Cup in 2 years' time in 2026, which will be the 113th Grey Cup. But as I mentioned, this will be the 6th time that Calgary will host it. So we'll take a look at some Calgary Grey Cup history and things that I'm looking forward to, especially after how things were done in 2019. But the first time Calgary hosted the Grey Cup was the 63rd Grey Cup. This happened on November 23rd in 1975, and there was 35,454 fans at that game, and it was a tight game by the Edmonton Eskimos and the Montreal Alouettes. Apparently there was a Chinook that came in, and then it got cold, so the players were caught off guard. How to prepare for this game? Well, to me it was the 12-4 Edmonton Eskimos, coached by Ray Young, defeated the Montreal Alouettes, who were 9-7 that season, coached by Marv Levy. Edmonton won 98. I think it was highlighted that there was a young woman that streaked at the coin toss for that game. So that was the first time Calgary hosted the Grey Cup. And then the first one that I was around for was the 81st Grey Cup in 1993. I also remember the city was very excited about hosting the game. There was decals everywhere, and we had a great team. But unfortunately, we had a heartbreak in the West Final. But what happened to that game is actually over 50,035 to be exact packed McMahon Stadium with temporary stands. This game was played on November 28th, 1993, and just like in 1975, the Edmonton Eskimos won this Grey Cup 33-23. Edmonton was 12-6 that season. They unfortunately crushed my dreams back then for Calgary to be in it and host it. I wasn't at this game, but I was hoping Calgary was going to be in and win it. But Edmonton won 33-23 over then the 4-14 Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Edmonton was coached by Ron Lancaster, and Winnipeg was coached by Cal Murphy. So there were two legendary coaches. And that one, I guess I also forget to mention, I'll bring up the tab for the 1975 Grey Cup, as well, because I should also highlight who won the MVP. Actually, it was the most valuable Canadian was the cut curve by the Eskimos in Dave Cutler. As actually there was no touchdowns, I believe, in this game. And the most valuable player on the offense at that time, it was Steve Fergelli, the running back for the Montreal Alouettes. And then on defense, it was Lewis Cook, also on the Montreal Alouettes. So that's how they changed the MVP. But then getting back to the 81st Grey Cup, it was Damon Allen, the quarterback for the Edmonton Eskimos, who won the most valuable player, and kicker and punter Sean Fleming was the most valuable Canadian. So Edmonton won 2 Grey Cups in Calgary. So that's why I really enjoyed it in 2018 at the 106th Grey Cup, because I at least earned one as a Stampeder fan to celebrate in our house, considering Edmonton celebrated twice in our house. Well, the next time the Calgary Stampeders, the third time, and this was the first Grey Cup game I attended personally, was the 88th Grey Cup in the year 2000, and my heart was broken once again in the playoffs, as this time it was the BC Lions that delivered the heartbreaking blow, and the winner, the BC Lions, also won this Grey Cup. It was 28-26, and the BC Lions, they were 8-10 that season, coached by Steve Barato, who actually also spent some time coaching the Calgary Stampeders in a couple stints. And the Montreal Alouettes, they were 12-6, first in the East Division, coached by Charlie Taff. And this game was played on November 26th, 2000. There was 43,822 fans this game. They didn't have temporary stands that surrounded the stadium for this game. And ultimately, the most valuable player for this one was Robert Drummond, the running back for the BC Lions, and most valuable Canadian was also running back, fullback, and Sean Millington. And just also add in Damon Allen was also quarterback for the BC Lions. So Damon Allen, he must really like winning Grey Cups in Calgary, because he won it in 1993 and 2000. He also loves to beat the Calgary Stampeders in the playoffs when they're hosting said Grey Cup. And mentioned that this was my first one that I went to back in 2000. So then the next time the Calgary Stampeders hosted the Grey Cup was the 97th Grey Cup in 2009. This game happened on November 29th, 2009. This game still had, well, actually we had 46,020 to be exact, where they had the temporary stands on the north end at the Red and White Club. And this game featured the Montreal Alouettes and the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Montreal Alouettes, they were 15-3 that season as they won 28-27. They were coached by Mark Tressman. Well, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, they broke my heart again in the playoffs in the West Final. They were 10-7-1. They actually hosted the West Final that year, coached by Ken Miller. What was this game remembered for? That dramatic comeback that the Montreal Alouettes had in the fourth quarter to win this one, and on a winning field goal. Let's not ignore the elephant in the room. There was too many men. Saskatchewan got caught with too many men. Montreal was attempting a 43-yard field goal. It was wide, but David Duval had a second chance at 33 yards, and he was not going to miss it that time. So Montreal won the Grey Cup. So ultimately, Anthony Calvillo got to be happy in a Grey Cup in Calgary, as he was on the wrong end of it 9 years earlier. But once again, all these Grey Cups, I've had dreams of Calgary being in it. And then it was 10 years later, the 107th Grey Cup in 2019. I keep missing that the MVP of the Grey Cup. The MVP for the Grey Cup when it comes to the 97th Grey Cup. And I'm going to bring it up here. Once again, already the 97th Grey Cup, I should say, which was here. The MVP of that game actually went to Evan Coburn, the running back for the Montreal Alouettes, and the top Canadian was Ben Cahoon, slot back for the Montreal Alouettes. So now we'll take a look at the 107th Grey Cup, as once again my heart was broken in the playoffs, but not in the West Final, the West Semi-Final, by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And ultimately, it was the Winnipeg Blue Bombers that was in the Grey Cup against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And I was thinking that season, if Calgary was not going to be in the Grey Cup, my consolation matchup would have been Winnipeg and Hamilton. The reason why I wanted Winnipeg and Hamilton in the Grey Cup for that year was at the time it was the two teams with the longest Grey Cup droughts. Because Winnipeg was looking for their first Grey Cup since 1990, and Hamilton was looking for their first Grey Cup since 1999. Ultimately, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers won this one 33-12, and it was a little bit of an upset, as Winnipeg was 11-7. They were in third place that year because we hosted the West Semi-Final, and Winnipeg won that one, and then they also won in Saskatchewan before coming back to Calgary to play the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Hamilton was 15-3 that season. Winnipeg was coached by Mike O'Shea, while it was Alonzo Steiner coaching the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And in that game, they did not put in temporary stands, so they had a full 35,440. And then when it comes to the most valuable player, most valuable Canadian, history was also made that it was Andrew Harris taking both awards. So then fast forward to 2026, which will be the next time Calgary will host the Grey Cup. It will be on Sunday, November the 15th, as they moved up the season. So it's going to be interesting to see. Hopefully there'll be some more announcements on what they plan to do, potentially with the stadium. I know this off season they're going to replace the turf at McMahon Stadium. I mean, it's an older, dated facility. I've seen nicer stadiums in the CFL throughout my travels, and I mean, I'm always going to have my memories and nostalgia for McMahon Stadium, but they definitely, hopefully there's going to be plans in the next couple of years to at least, improve the concourse and the facilities. I mean, McMahon has been expanded many, many times over the years. And I'm going to say those concourses, it could barely hold, you could barely move around. There's 20 to 25,000 in the stadium. Never mind 35. And it really felt packed when I was there for the Grey Cup in 2019, the 107th Grey Cup. Felt even worse in 2000. Or I was also there for the Heritage Classic in 2011 when it was an outdoor game between the Calgary Flames and the Montreal Canadiens. That's the other thing McMahon has going for it. It was the host of the 1988 Winter Olympics. But it's definitely seeing its age. But the dream is that Calgary will finally have a good enough team. So now we got something to strive for, to build for 2026 after we missed the playoffs in 2024. It'd definitely be great for Calgary's economy, as they estimate it'll bring in $50 million to the local economy between accommodations, people at restaurants, people flying into Calgary. So, and then one thing that happened really well in 2019 that we'll have more room for it is I love the fact that all the team parties, all the events was at Stampede Park. And now we have the expanded BMO Center. So it should probably be even bigger and better to have all the team parties, concert series at the Scotiabank Saddledome, because the Scotia Place won't be ready yet. It's going to be closer to being completed then. And then they're also going to look at doing the, I didn't take it or buy an extra ticket for it, but they had a Grey Cup themed rodeo. Basically, it felt like when the Grey Cup was here in 2019, Stampede Park was alive like a stampede, but in November. And then the fact that it got darker earlier, it was nice to have the fireworks show at 9 o'clock. I think it was 9 o'clock that captioned to close out the day. So I am looking forward to that. Obviously, I'm dreaming that Calgary will be in the Grey Cup. Every Western team, the previous 4 times, has broken my heart in the playoffs. That's all been done. Maybe Calgary is finally due to actually win the Grey Cup at home when we host it. I mean, it was great to see Calgary win it 10 years ago when I was in Vancouver. Wow, it has been 10 years. And then even 6 years ago, 2018, for Edmonton reasons, it felt a lot sweeter to win it in Edmonton, especially at the end of the game when they showed the banners and all the graphics, and it said Calgary Stampeders Grey Cup champions at Calgary Stadium. I was like, oh yes. I earned the globe as we looked at the history. Edmonton won 2 Grey Cups in our house, so I deserved that one right up there, but I'm definitely thrilled. Excited for it. The other thing that also could help the Calgary Stampeders in getting season ticket numbers up too. As ticket sales have fallen off a little bit, has flattened out if you read the or listen to the Jay McNeil president quotes at the end of the season. But the fact that season ticket holders get first dibs at the Grey Cup game, I think this might help. Maybe there'll be a promo that they'll throw in this season that if you get season tickets in 25, you'll get a discount for 26 and the Grey Cup. So I think this is also another way to try to crop up, and maybe also the fact that maybe we'll get some improvements or more support with the potential of a new stadium. It gets more complicated that the Flames own the Stampeders and the stadium is owned by the university. So there's definitely a lot more red tape, politics you got to go through with that. I know there's city plans about redeveloping Foothills Park, where they want to put the field house there where the current track is, in Foothills Stadium or Burns Stadium, if you remember the Calgary Cannons days. That McMahon was going to see some updates, and if Calgary did go ahead with the Olympics bid for 2026, McMahon would have been a part of it, because that stadium would have been used once again for the opening and closing ceremonies before it went to Italy, because we didn't vote ahead with it. And I understand that decision, but I just say go back. What do you think about the Grey Cup coming back to Calgary, at least the big game in 2026? I mean, ultimately it's the team, the league, board of governors that approve it, and teams have to bid on it. The Grey Cup's been actually fairly west the last few years. I mean, it's in Vancouver in 2024. Next year in 2025, I'm not too sure if I'll go next year. It's in Winnipeg. Be easy for me to go in 2026 in Calgary. But then Hamilton had it twice in 3 years in 2021 and 2023. Well, they kind of had another do-over because they couldn't have any of the festivities in 2021 and barely was able to get it in 2021 because of restrictions with COVID and all that. And 2022 it was in Regina, and then, I mean, Calgary had 2019, Edmonton in 2018, and then it was out east a few years prior, 2017 Ottawa, 2016 in Toronto. And then if you look at the other cities, now if you go west to east, well, BC hosted this year, then they last hosted in 2014, then they hosted it in 2011, and then also in 2005. I mean, Calgary, this is our 5th Grey Cup since 2000. You know, you could say 3rd since 2009 with 9, 19, and 26. And then Edmonton, well, they had it in 2002, and then they had it in 2002 they hosted it, and then I remember they hosted in 1997, then they hosted in 2010, and then in 2018. So we've had the Grey Cup more than Edmonton. And then Saskatchewan, well, in 2022 was the first time they hosted it in their new stadium. The previous times before, well, they hosted it in 2013, which was the last time in their old stadium Saskatchewan had to win it. Then the time before that, it was, 2003. And then I seen that stadium was able to hold 45,000 and the home team win it. I think McMahon will be alright. And then Winnipeg, well, they're scheduled to host it next year. 2015 was their first time they hosted it in the new stadium, which I was at that game. And then the previous time before that, they didn't host it in 2006 at the old stadium. But now if you go out east, I mean, Toronto, well, I mean, they still have trouble drawing fans, but they last hosted it in 2016 at BMO Field, but then they had it in 2012, the 100th Grey Cup, then in 1997, which was in both in Rogers Centre, where the Blue Jays play, and then, as I mentioned, Hamilton, they had it 2 times in 3 years, but the 2023 was more for real with the festivities, and then 2021, but they didn't host it until previously in 1996, because they're Ivor Wynn. I heard fans from Hamilton that came here and were seeing McMahon first time, they're saying, so that reminded me a lot of Ivor Wynn. Not just sure if that's a compliment or not, but Hamilton apparently had some legal issues too, which is why Calgary was able to host it in 2019, because they were the only other team that hosted it. And then Ottawa, well, I was at the game in 2017, it was the first time in the renovated TD Place Stadium, and that they hosted it in 2004 as the Renegades as well. Ottawa's been hit or miss on hosting Grey Cups, but then they've also had other issues with their team history. But Montreal has last hosted the Grey Cup in 2008, and they hosted in 2001. Both times at Olympic Stadium. I know that you hear lots of stories about the Olympic Stadium just keeps on giving in terms of how much it costs just to keep that going. But I'm surprised Montreal, they haven't hosted a Grey Cup in a long time either. And I remember hearing Randy Ambrosie even saying stuff like Calgary and Montreal might not get a Grey Cup again for a while after 2019, because first of all, most stadium is a little smaller place to host a Grey Cup. It's I think it's the oldest active stadium in the CFL in its form. I guess you could also argue with TD Place in Ottawa, which used to be Frank Clair Stadium, but one side got completely rebuilt and renovated. And then the Ottawa Civic Centre Hockey Arena is also there as well, where briefly hosted the Ottawa Senators when they first came back in the NHL in the 90s, host the 67s, but it seems like the West has actually gotten more games than the East outside of Toronto. But I'll take all the games as they come. I haven't been to as many Grey Cups as I want to the last few years, just because everything has gotten a lot more expensive, especially after COVID wrecked everything. And then East Grey Cups are a lot more expensive because you got to fly there, and obviously you got to find accommodations in Saskatchewan. It's tougher because there's never enough accommodations to host fans, and not wanting to break the bank. And the relatives I do have doesn't make it practical, so at least, hopefully I'm guaranteed at least go to the Grey Cup in a couple years when it's back here in Calgary. But what do you think? And what do you think of all the interesting history of the games that Calgary's hosted? And will fifth time be the charm that finally, Calgary will have a good enough team that will be in the Grey Cup and win it? I can only dream. I can dream again, but I've also seen this movie before, and I don't like how the previous times ended, but I'm keeping the faith now. So anyway, I'll close out. If you want to follow along this Calgary sports fans journey, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I have my other social media links down in the description below. Yeah, just can't hide the fact that I'm excited and thrilled that Calgary will be hosting the Grey Cup again, 2026. And you can thank Calgary and their fans back in 1948 when we won the first Grey Cup over the Ottawa Rough Riders in Toronto, where we made it a party. And we're the Stampede City. We're going to tie in the Calgary Stampede with the Calgary Stampeders. It's going to be like the Calgary Stampede in November, CFL football themed, if 2019 was any indication. I'm looking forward to 2026. I'll still plan to still have season tickets. I always will be happy to go to any Grey Cup game, regardless who's playing, but I can always dream Calgary will be in it and we'll hoist it. Other teams got to experience it. I want to finally experience it myself at home, and I think if I ever did, it'd be hard to say if I ever want to go to another Grey Cup again, because I don't know if anything would top that. But that's all I gotta say. Thanks for watching. Go Stamps Go, and I'll see you in the next video.